Have you ever felt like someone stole the very essence of who you are, leaving you entirely hollow while they walked away glowing with your stolen light? Today, we are exposing the ultimate hidden cost of this theft. By the end of this video, you will finally understand the devastating, irreversible energetic bankruptcy that happens when they drain a chosen one. You probably spent months, or maybe even years, wondering how they could just take so much from you and walk away entirely unscathed. You gave them your warmth, your profound empathy, and your seemingly endless patience. They soaked it all up like a sponge. And then they just left. You felt completely destroyed. You assumed they won the game. But did they really? We need to talk about what actually happens in the dark when the show is over. You see, the narcissist operates entirely on stolen energy. They do not have their own internal light source. They are like a black hole, constantly consuming everything around them just to survive another day. But a black hole never gets full. It just gets heavier and infinitely darker. When they targeted you, they didn't just pick you at random. They saw something incredibly rare. You are what we call a chosen one. You possess a unique frequency of light, a depth of soul that they could instantly recognize but could never replicate. They wanted to consume that exact frequency. They thought your light would finally be the thing to fix their void. So they latched on. They started siphoning your energy, day by day, argument by argument. You felt yourself growing weaker, increasingly confused, and totally exhausted. Meanwhile, they seemed to be thriving. They wore your vitality like a stolen coat, parading around as if they had generated that warmth themselves. It looked like a perfect, flawless heist. But here is the brutal truth that nobody tells you. Stolen energy has an expiration date. It is not self-sustaining. When a narcissist drains a chosen one, they are taking in a frequency of light that their own toxic internal wiring cannot actually process. It is like pouring high-octane rocket fuel into a broken, rusted-out engine. It might roar for a second. Then, it inevitably destroys the machine from the inside out. They thought they were taking your power to make themselves invincible. But they actually swallowed something that will inevitably tear them apart. This is the concept of energetic bankruptcy. And it is the most brutal, unavoidable price they will ever pay for daring to mess with a soul like yours. You need to understand that their apparent victory is completely an illusion. Right now, they might look fine. They might even look happy with someone new, doing the exact same routine. But underneath that carefully constructed mask, a terrifying reality is beginning to set in. The fuel they stole from you is running out. And their tank is completely empty. That is the thing about being a bottomless pit. The hunger never actually stops. When they finally discard you, or when you finally find the strength to walk away, they lose their primary power source. Suddenly, the stolen coat of warmth begins to freeze. The illusion starts to crack. And the absolute panic of starvation begins to set in deep inside their mind. This is exactly where the balance of power shifts forever. You are sitting there, feeling broken, but you are naturally generating new light. Because your light comes from within. It always has. But them? They are staring down the barrel of a permanent, crushing deficit. Let us look closer at the terrifying psychological breakdown that is about to hit them. To understand their collapse, you have to look at how their mind is actually built. A narcissist's entire existence is a trauma response wrapped in a fragile delusion. They created a fake self to hide a deeply broken, shameful core. That fake self requires a massive amount of daily energy to maintain. It is exhausting work, pretending to be a god every single day. Without your pure energy pumping into their system, that heavy, fake persona becomes impossible to hold up. Think of it like a massive theatrical stage set, held together by nothing but weak tape and string. You were the one secretly holding the spotlight and paying the electricity bill. When you leave, the lights go out. The strings immediately start to snap. They immediately scramble to find a replacement. They rush out and grab the next available person, desperately hoping for a quick fix. But here is their tragic flaw. Not everyone is a chosen one. Most people do not have the depth, the immense reserves of spiritual energy, or the profound empathy that you naturally provided. The new supply is just entirely hollow. The new person might give them attention, But attention is not the same thing as life force. It is like trying to survive on cheap fast food after eating gourmet meals for years. It fills the stomach temporarily, but it provides absolutely zero real nourishment. The narcissist starts to feel a deep, gnawing malnutrition. The panic starts quietly, but it grows. They begin to obsess over you. Even if they discarded you, even if they act like you do not exist. Your energy is the standard by which they now measure everything. And everything else falls completely short. They start to realize the magnitude of what they threw away. They thought you were disposable. They suddenly realize you were their absolute lifeblood. This realization does not bring them to genuine remorse. Narcissists do not feel guilt the way you do. Instead, it brings them to a state of terrified frustration. They feel cheated by the universe. Why can't they find another you? Why is everyone else so incredibly boring, so entirely empty? They are projecting their own profound emptiness onto the entire world. The psychological breakdown accelerates because they cannot escape their own mind. When the external validation dries up, they are left alone with the one thing they have been running from their entire lives. Themselves. And the self they meet in the dark is a terrifying, ravenous ghost. It is the core wound of total worthlessness, screaming loudly in the silence. They try to numb it. They might spiral into reckless behaviors, new addictions, or frantic social climbing. Anything to drown out the horrible quiet. But it does not work anymore. The energetic deficit is just too large. They over-leveraged their soul when they took on yours. They spent energy they did not actually own. Now, the universal debt collector is here. You see, the universe has a strict accounting system when it comes to vital life force. You cannot permanently steal a chosen one's light without paying a severe spiritual tax. The narcissist's internal world becomes a prison of profound paranoia and deep, unshakable boredom. Nothing tastes good. Nothing feels real. The mask is practically suffocating them now. This is the unseen agony of their condition. You cried your tears loudly, in the open, where they could heal. But they are bleeding out energetically, entirely in secret. They can never tell anyone how terrified they truly are. They must maintain the smug illusion while rotting from the inside. This hidden decay brings us to the dramatic, unavoidable turning point. There is a specific moment when the energetic bankruptcy goes from a creeping fear to an absolute, undeniable reality. It usually happens quietly. Maybe they are sitting in their car after work, or staring at a wall in a crowded room. Suddenly, a profound and heavy deadness washes over them. A total inability to feel anything at all. The spark is completely gone. They try to deploy their usual manipulation tactics on a new target, expecting the familiar rush of power. But the script suddenly feels incredibly heavy. They say the charming words, they flash the fake smile, but the internal thrill just is not there anymore. It feels like exhausting, meaningless labor. The mechanism of their false self is finally breaking down. This is the moment they desperately try to hoover you. They reach out with a random text, a fake emergency, or a nostalgic memory. They do not want to apologize. They are starving, and they remember what your energy tasted like. They are shaking the empty vending machine, hoping one last morsel of validation drops out. It is pathetic, desperate, and very telling. But here is the beautiful twist in the story. This time, you do not respond. Or if you do, your energy is completely neutral, like a gray rock. You have closed the energetic bank account. Their access card has been permanently declined. The shock that hits their nervous system in this exact moment is absolutely catastrophic. They realize they have zero control. A narcissist thrives on the delusion that they pull the strings of the universe. Your silence shatters that delusion into a million jagged pieces. They are suddenly forced to confront their ultimate insignificance. Without your reaction, without your tears, your anger, or your pleading, they simply do not exist. You were the mirror proving they were actually alive. They spin into what is known as a narcissistic injury, but this one is incredibly deep. It is a fatal blow to the ego. They might rage, smear your name, or play the ultimate victim. But all of that noise is just the chaotic sound of a collapsing building. It is a desperate, flailing attempt to generate any kind of friction. Because friction feels like life. But you are no longer providing the friction. You have completely stepped off the battlefield. And without an enemy to fight, the narcissist's venom has nowhere to go but strictly inward. They begin to poison themselves with their own toxicity. The hatred they wanted you to carry is now trapped inside their own body. And it is burning them alive from the inside. Have you ever watched a parasite after it gets totally detached from its perfect host? It twitches. It frantically searches for a connection. Then, it slowly begins to shrivel. That is the exact spiritual reality of the narcissist who has lost a chosen one. They are physically alive, but energetically, they are actively withering away into absolute nothingness. They realize, in the quietest, darkest corners of their mind, that they fundamentally ruined the best thing that ever happened to them. They will never admit this out loud. They will lie to everyone, including themselves. But the soul always knows the profound truth. They murdered their one real chance at experiencing true, unconditional love and actual warmth. This deeply buried realization is the heaviest stone they will ever have to carry. It drags them down into a profound state of spiritual depression. The mask gets heavier every single day, and their arms are just too weak to hold it up anymore. The turning point is completely over. Now, we enter the dark, brutal phase of their ultimate and total system collapse. The collapse of a narcissist is rarely a massive public spectacle. It is a slow, quiet rotting away of their internal world. The energetic bankruptcy begins to manifest visibly. You might notice they suddenly look much older, their eyes become entirely dead and glassy, or their face takes on a hard, bitter quality. The inner starvation is showing on the outside. Their relationships become a series of shallow, repeating disasters. Because they cannot tap into deep energy anymore, they have to constantly cycle through low-level supply. They burn through friends, partners, and jobs with terrifying speed. Every single connection ends in disappointment, leaving them a little more isolated and heavily exhausted than before. They become trapped in a self-made purgatory. They remember the high of your pure energy, but they can only access the cheapest, most toxic substitutes. It is a daily punishment of their own making. They are entirely surrounded by people, yet completely and utterly alone. No one truly knows them, because there is no true self left to actually know or connect with. The paranoia becomes incredibly intense. When you operate by using, betraying, and draining others, you naturally assume everyone is doing the exact same thing to you. They trust absolutely no one. They sleep with one eye open, constantly waiting for the universe to strike back. This state of hypervigilance fries their nervous system into absolute exhaustion. And the most brutal consequence of all? They lose their basic ability to dream. A chosen one has endless hope, a natural capacity to envision a beautiful future despite immense pain. The narcissist has entirely lost that capacity. Their future is just a terrifying, endlessly repeating loop of their unhealed past. Tomorrow is just another day they have to survive. They look at you from a distance, and they see something they cannot comprehend. You went through hell. They broke you down to your absolute foundation. But instead of turning cruel, you rebuilt yourself. You became even brighter, more authentic, and infinitely stronger. You regenerated. That is the true miracle of being a genuinely chosen one. You regenerate. Your regeneration is the ultimate proof of their total failure. They tried to extinguish your light, but all they did was burn away your deep naivety. They taught you how to strictly protect your power. They essentially gave you the ultimate armor. In their twisted attempt to destroy you, they accidentally forged you into a completely unstoppable, beautiful force. While you are rising, they are permanently sinking into the void they tried to force you into. This is the undeniable law of energetic exchange. You cannot steal light and keep it. It will always return to its rightful owner, leaving the thief with the exact darkness they started with. But this time, the darkness is vastly heavier, thicker, and deeply suffocating. They will spend the rest of their natural life trying to outrun this crushing bankruptcy. They will keep collecting cheap shiny objects and hollow people to distract themselves. But nothing will ever fill the massive crater you left behind. They are fundamentally bankrupt. Their spiritual accounts are drained to zero, and their credit has been permanently revoked. This is not a punishment handed down from an angry God. This is simply the natural consequence of their own brutal choices. They chose to be a parasite instead of doing the incredibly hard work of healing their own wounds. And nature always eliminates a parasite eventually. Now, let us talk about what this profound reality means for you and your ultimate healing. You survived a spiritual war that most people cannot even begin to comprehend. For a long time, you walked around feeling like a totally empty shell, believing they took the best parts of you forever. But I need you to hear this clearly, they did not take your core. They only took what overflowed. The eternal spring that generates your light is fully intact. You are not empty. You are simply exhausted from unknowingly funding someone else's fake reality. Now that the leak is permanently plugged, your energy is finally returning home to your own body. You are going to feel a vitality you have not felt in years. The brain fog will naturally lift. The constant, heavy anxiety will slowly dissolve into a deep, steady peace. Do not waste another single moment checking on their karma. You do not need to look at their social media to see if they are finally paying the price. I promise you they are. The universe does not let soul theft go entirely unpunished. Their punishment is simply having to wake up every single day and be them. That is a hell you could never possibly design. Your job now is entirely about radical self-preservation. You must guard your energy like the absolute treasure it is. Not everyone deserves access to your light. You have learned the incredibly hard way that some people do not want to warm themselves by your fire, they just want to steal the wood and burn your entire house down. Never ignore those signs again. You are stepping into a profoundly beautiful chapter of your life. The naive empathy you once had has evolved into fierce, deeply boundaried wisdom. You still love deeply, but you no longer love blindly. You recognize the vampires the moment they walk into the room, and you silently close the door before they even have a chance to speak their very first lie. When you look back at what happened, do not feel ashamed that you were targeted. Feel profoundly proud. You were targeted precisely because you hold something inherently magnificent. The narcissist was simply a harsh, brutal mirror showing you exactly how powerful you truly are. You survived a black hole. Nothing in this earthly world can ever destroy you now. The energetic bankruptcy they are suffering is their own terrible burden to carry. Release them completely to their dark, hollow fate. You owe them absolutely nothing. Cut the final invisible cords of guilt, of wishing you could have saved them, of hoping they would finally change. They were never your assignment to fix. They were just a painful lesson to learn. Take a deep breath right now. Feel that subtle, warm pulse of life returning to your center. That is your authentic power coming back online. It is totally unbothered, beautifully pure, and entirely yours. You are officially no longer a victim of their spiritual theft. You are the resilient, totally victorious guardian of your own profound and beautiful soul. Let them wander the earth with their empty cups, begging for scraps of validation from strangers. Let them play their pathetic, exhausting games in the dark. You are stepping out into the warm, glorious sun. You are completely whole. You are deeply safe. And you are so much more incredibly powerful than you could ever possibly begin to imagine in this moment. The ultimate revenge is not watching them finally collapse under the crushing weight of their own absolute emptiness. The ultimate revenge is forgetting they ever existed at all, while you go on to live a profoundly beautiful, unapologetically radiant life. Your light was never truly theirs to keep. And now, your brilliant, untamed light is finally coming home. Have you ever felt like someone stole the very essence of who you are, leaving you entirely hollow while they walked away glowing with your stolen light? Today, we are exposing the ultimate hidden cost of this theft. By the end of this video, you will finally understand the devastating, irreversible energetic bankruptcy that happens when they drain a chosen one. You probably spent months, or maybe even years, wondering how they could just take so much from you and walk away entirely unscathed. You gave them your warmth, your profound empathy, and your seemingly endless patience. They soaked it all up like a sponge. And then they just left.